What's up, everyone? About the fact that there are apparently some Christian leaders who are denouncing Trump's actions and warning of crisis of faith. All right, we're going to talk about this. This is kind of in lieu of the video I talked about yesterday around Christian nationalism, and I found this today, and I wanted to go over it. So, thank you for joining me here. If you're new to ClearTalk, welcome. If you'd like to check out more videos from the channel, please do so. Consider subscribing, like, share, comment, all that good stuff to get more videos in front of more people, to help grow the channel and really, get us out there and grow as a voice in this progressive uh, sphere, of influence, trying to get the word out and, of positivity and honesty. That's what I want. Some suggestions, even if it's to not do it at all. I mean, I can consider that. So, here we have um, from U.S. Today, Christian leaders, um, again, denouncing Trump's actions, warning of crisis of faith. Hundreds of Christian leaders and scholars worldwide are denouncing Donald Trump's administration and urging more active resistance among the faithful to, quote, the injustice and anti democratic danger sweeping across the nation. But we are facing a cruel and oppressive government. Their collective statement begins. In moments like this, silence is not neutral. It is an active choice to permit harm. Titled, quote, A Call to Christians in a Crisis of Faith and Democracy. The letter says the nation is facing a profound moral, spiritual, and democratic emergency. Its release coincides with the start of the Christian season of Lent, a period of repentance, self reflection, and resistance to temptation. Quote, we thought it was important to tie into a season where many Christians go deeper into their faith, said Adam Russell Taylor, president of Sojourners, a Christian social justice organization. Quote, part of what we're critiquing is the way in which many white evangelical Christians succumb to an unconditional support of the administration, despite the fact that its actions are completely antithetical to the teachings of Jesus. Leaders of all faiths have increasingly spoken out and participated in protests against the policies of the Trump administration, particularly aimed at what many see as overly aggressive efforts to detain and deport undocumented immigrants. Pastors have been arrested and struck with pepper balls during demonstrations. The statement says Christians have a moral obligations to speak out against, quote, citizens and immigrants being demonized, disappeared, and even killed. Last year was the highest death rate among immigrants that have been seized or in detention centers than ever before. The erosion of hard-won rights and freedoms, and a calculated effort to reverse Americans' growing racial and ethnic diversity, all of which is pushing us towards authoritarian and imperial rule. This movement is a defining test of Christian discipleship and civic responsibility, said the Reverend Jim Wallace, founder and director of Georgetown Center of Faith and Justice in Washington, D.C. Democratic freedoms are being taken away and the gospel is being distorted. Very true. The vulnerable people Jesus told us to stand with and defend are being targeted and assaulted. How true that statement is. I mean, if you honestly follow and believe in Jesus' teachings, and yes, this is coming from someone who is no longer a Christian, but, looking at his teachings, if you believe in those and you revolve your religion and your beliefs around his teachings, this type of these types of actions and stuff completely antithetically go against that belief, go against those teachings. And if you're finding yourself supporting and defending those, then you really need to internalize and reflect on your faith and what direction you are taking your faith and you are going with it, and whether or not it's the correct direction. Wallace and Taylor organized the collective effort along with Barbara Williams Skinner, president of Baltimore Skinner Institution, a faith leadership development organization. About 400 people initially signed the statement, representing a range of Christian denominations, leaders of Black, Asian, and Latino churches and associations in Christians, universities, and institutions. Hundreds more have added their names since the letter's February 18th release. The Christian leaders and scholars say, aside from the risk of democracy, they are troubled by, quote, a Christian faith corrupted by the heretical ideology of white Christian nationalism. Yes. People look at it as just a democratic crisis, but it's not, said the Reverend Cynthia Hale, pastor of Ray of Hope Christian Church in Decatur, Georgia, who was among those who signed the letter. Quote, it's a crisis of faith. Christian nationalism, the idea that Christian people and biblical law should govern American life, has seeped into the highest levels of American government, with conservative evangelicals becoming a major political force with strong support of Trump. Evangelical pastor Doug Wilson, who has said women should neither vote nor hold religious or political leadership positions, was recently invited by Secretary of War Pete Hegseth to conduct a service at the Pentagon, which we talked about briefly in the video yesterday. Their religious leaders have been so unconditionally supportive that it's almost branded this administration as being religious in the minds of many Americans, which is a distortion. Bishop Raymond Rivera of the Council of Holistic Christian Churches and Ministries, who also signed the letter, they've confused proximity to political power with proximity to the power of God. They're not the same. How true? How true? Taylor called some conflation a form of idolatry. And that's exactly what it is. It's exactly what it is. These people have made Trump an idol, made this administration an idol to something that God has provided to fix America. And that's if you think that what the Trump administration has done and what they have enacted is works and actions from God, man, we have a problem. And said that the Trump administration has misused Christian language to support its activities, such as immigration and customs reinforcement, recruitment ads that quote scriptures in their appeals. One ad, for instance, includes a verse saying, "Blessed are the peacemakers." Blessed are the peacemakers. Those going around arresting and violently grabbing up and disappearing people for months now. even killing people, American citizens. These are the peacemakers. Wow. It feels particularly offensive and egregious in the light of the tactics we've seen them employ in Minneapolis, Chicago, Los Angeles, and elsewhere. He said it's corrupting the Christian faith to advance its own political agenda. And that's exactly what it's doing. That's exactly what it's doing. This administration has done nothing but corrupt and politicize the Christian faith to get this and gain support of its base, knowing that there's a good amount of its base that are of Christian faith, but also this is like extreme Christian faith. Christian, and not in a good way. Kristen Cobes Dumez, I think that's Cobes, maybe. I don't know. A professor of history and gender studies at Calvin University, a Christian institute in Grand Rapids, Michigan, says she initially wondered before signing whether the movement required something more than signing yet another statement. I realize the statement isn't primarily for people who have been on the front lines of these issues, but for pastors and ordinary Christians who may be just waking up to what's happening and what's at stake, Dumez said. I think it's important to offer a statement that clarifies the political and theological stakes and that people can put their name behind. This is a way of ordinary Christians to step up. The letter concludes that tying a set of core theological convictions to actions the signers pledge to take to practice their faith and protect democracy, including defending voting rights, pursuing peace, and standing with unjustly targeted immigrants. Dottie Escobedo Frank, I hope that's right, Bishop of the United Methodist Church's California Pacific Conference in Pasadena, says she signed the letter to encourage her Southern California community and all Christians to live out their callings to serve the downtrodden, demonstrate compassion, and challenge political leaders to act on their behalf. However, with church ministries offering food distribution, child care, and elderly assistance having faced disruption from the ICE agents or anti-immigrant demonstrators, we're seeing people in our communities who are afraid to live out their faith because of the actions of our government. And that's something that even I hadn't really completely thought about. While this, administration has over and over again stated how they were, they're doing things and are trying to protect Christians in the nation and make sure that they have the freedoms and don't feel suppressed to live and practice their faith openly. While some claim that they can't. These church ministers are stating that there are people in the communities that are afraid to actually live out their faith, their Christian faith, because of the actions of the government. That when a government uses a religion as its cover face, of actions that they are taking, and those actions in overall political, social construct look and see those actions as negative and hurtful for communities all over the country, that in itself is going to create this negative appearance of Christianity, at least to some degree. And it's going to cause people to be afraid to actually live out their faith, even if they don't agree with the administration and what they're doing. And that's something that I haven't honestly thought about yet. That there are actual Christians in the country that are afraid to even practice and be openly faithful because of fear of backlash, that they are in lockstep with our government because of the way our government is using Christianity as this, like I said, this faceplate for its actions. That's interesting. That's interesting. Taylor understands many may be justifiably fearful of living out their creed, but said it's crucial for people to engage at a time when the pages of the authoritarian playbook are very much in effect. He said, one way to overcome such fears, aside from leaning into the resilience of faith itself, is to connect with other Christians. The letter effort includes a website where supporters can find ways to get involved. One of the most consistent refrains in goodness gracious Scripture is do not be afraid. Authoritarian governments thrive on people feeling isolated and overwhelmed. So we're trying to create a network of solidarity and courage. We have the power to prevent things from getting worse. And that was kind of my point to some degree from the video yesterday, was that when you allow a subset of a religion, an extremity of a religion, like white nationalism, Christian nationalism, or just Christian nationalism in general, the question always has to come up, what type of Christianity we're talking about here? Because it would be a specific type, a suppressive, authoritarian type of Christianity that always tries to invoke this type of strength and power and like domination, control, which is, again, doesn't fall in line with the teachings of Jesus whatsoever. And at the same time is, to some degree, demonizing and suppressing other factions of faith, of Christianity, to feel like they can't even practice or be open. To some degree, probably even persecuted because they don't agree with that type of extremity within their own religion. So, and it's very bold. It's very bold and honestly respectful, in my opinion, for these leaders to speak out, to come together, and to release this letter warning Christians all across the country to reevaluate in this moment, reevaluate their faith, to reflect and resist the temptation for what you could perceive as just worldly power. And that was something that I always took, even, of not being of worldly ways. That was like a fundamental thing in Christianity, to not be of the worldly ways, Yet, Christian nationalism, that's like one of the key efforts, is to be within the worldly ways, to be within governance and law and rules, which is not at all what it should be about and what it was supposed to be about. Because Jesus loved the lowest in society. He taught and protected, ye of whatever, or those without sin, cast the first stone kind of thing. Remember? And we're talking about someone who quite literally went into the temples and overthrew tables because of the connection, the combining of governance and religion, which was kind of the key in that scene. I mean, Jesus' teachings himself was about separation of that. To love thy neighbor. Love those that are being oppressed and suppressed. Love the lowest of society. To help pick them up. That was one of the founding, like one of the major points in all of his teachings. So to see Christians all over the country that are calling and defending these types of actions from this administration to go after people and remove them from our society because they are looked at as alien, strangers, not worthy to live among us. That is not of Jesus' teachings. And I think if you are of that mindset, then you certainly do need to reevaluate. Reread your teachings that you claim to hold to. And resist the temptation of worldly evils like Donald Trump and the administration and those around him that are influencing him and encouraging him and encouraging the administration to pursue this type of nationalism. Because this is a crisis of faith and a crisis of our democracy. So thank you very much for joining me. Let me know what you think, though. Would you sign this? Are you a Christian leader, or are you of the Christian opinion that is in opposition of what this administration is doing, or do you defend it, and why? Let me know what you think, and until next time, peace. ClearTalk, I'm out.